Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Jackson Crawford. My mission is to present good information about my subject of expertise in Norse language, myth, runes, etc. to a wide public with expert understanding and without any further agenda. So yesterday, when I learned about the existence of what is probably the 21st century's biggest find in my field, potentially the very oldest thing we know of written in runes, I realized that I needed to make, before anything else, a kind of index video to point you toward the good sources of information available about this in the first 24 hours or so in which anyone knows about it, outside of the specialists who discovered it, and to present some basic first impressions. I mean, keep in mind I haven't seen the find, but just some guideposts for moving forward about how this might improve or change what we know about runes. So to begin with, the basic facts as far as I've seen, there's some good reporting in Norwegian language media, but for English language media, I haven't seen any comprehensive reports yet. Now, once this gets out to English language media, once this is in the hands of your CNN or whatever, no doubt it will be filtered through journalists and editors who don't know anything about the language and runes, and you're going to get some weird headlines, I've seen this happen so many times. It's going to be, the new find proves runes come from Mars or something. It happens. I'll be here to try to help point you toward good sources. And right now, the best English language reporting you're going to see about this is from two of the scholars working on the scene. Christer Vasshus at the University of Bergen has an excellent English language thread about the find on Twitter, as does Professor Kristel Silmer at the University of Oslo. Look for those two Twitter threads as really, I think, the best sources in English about this find right now. Now, what is this find? Well, it's several different stone surfaces with runes inscribed on them, found in association with a burial site in Ringerike in eastern Norway. Now, I don't know all of the archaeological details, but from what I understand, carbon dating points to the organic remains in the grave dating from approximately 25 to 120 AD. Now, if the runic inscriptions date from the same time as the organic remains, which isn't a given, but doesn't seem to be contradicted by anything in the evidence here, the runes are of a quite early Elder Futhark type, and the language looks quite archaic too, for example, then this would be indeed the earliest thing we can confirm written in runes, predating the Vimosacom from Denmark, which is dated to about 8160. Now, that's really, really important because, of course, you're never going to find the earliest thing written in runes. It's impossible. And probably whatever that earliest thing or earliest things are wouldn't be on stone. It would be on something more perishable. So, you'd be much, much less likely to find it just on those simple archaeological grounds. But it's interesting to me to look at what's publicly available of these inscriptions and to realize this is still the middle of a tradition, right? It doesn't look like a really early installment in writing in runes, just based on what the content is, right? We see one fragmentary inscription that's not fully pieced together right now, but begins ek, I, and ends runo, runic inscription. And that looks like the same formula you're going to see for centuries and centuries and centuries after this. I, whoever, carved the runic inscription or carved for so-and-so a runic inscription. You see one inscription that's the first three letters of the Elder Futhark runic alphabet, the F, the U, and the Th, and that suggests that already the order is established, right? The strange Futhark order as opposed to the ABC order you see in most Mediterranean-derived alphabets. And so if this is still part of the middle of a tradition, well, having the middle of the tradition pushed back, of course, pushes back the postulated beginning, right? I hold with Richard Morris, who I still think, although the book is getting old, wrote the best book about the questions of the origins of the runes, runic and Mediterranean epigraphy. I hold with him that whatever the oldest artifact you find is, you have to count on there being at least 200 years of tradition before the first thing that you found, right? Now, personally, I have always held, not always, but I have held for a long time that the origin of the runes must lie not in the Roman alphabet, which is an obvious near-at-hand source, but in either a Greek alphabet or in a mediated Greek alphabet, an alphabet used by some other people based on some epicoric, right, regional weird Greek alphabet, probably in the Alps. I have some videos about this, including one that's just called Origin of the Runes, some new ideas, something like that, and then some videos about individual runic letters. Now, I am not God's gift to runes or anything. My ideas are as subject to scrutiny as anyone else's, and I am really very curious to see what this find will make me or other people change one's mind about. You know, already I would say that having the tradition pushed back that far makes an ultimate origin in the Roman alphabet, I think, just that much less likely. I think that the later the origin, the more likely the source is the Roman alphabet. But I think part of what's made me suspicious of the Roman origin story is if you're in close contact with people who use the Roman alphabet, why not just borrow the Roman alphabet, right? The huge difference from whatever source alphabet, be it Roman or Greek or something derived from Greek by some other middleman culture, suggests that it's not a language or alphabet that the Germanic language speakers are in constant everyday contact with, because otherwise why wouldn't they implement the source alphabet a little bit more faithfully and probably in a more normal ABC-like order? At the same time, it's really interesting to see that in this earliest set of inscriptions, you have some runes that are not necessarily in the shapes we would expect. A lot of attention has already been drawn to the B, which has, rather than two pockets, like a Greek or Roman B, or in fact, a regular runic B, has four in the most readable part of the inscription, which has probably a name, Idi Berug, which might represent Idi Bergu, which looks like a woman's name, or maybe Idi Berung, like a descendant of Idi Bero or something like that. Those are all plausible interpretations based on that spelling. Now, I don't think there's any source regional Greek or Greek-derived alphabet where B has those multiple pockets. But what's interesting there is it suggests that you have an inscriber who's being playful, maybe. And of course, it's good to remember that people on the most part making these inscriptions are probably younger than me, right? A middle-aged man like myself is getting toward old age in a society like this. You know, you have a high birth rate and just a lot of young people running around, and probably the inscribers of the runes are maybe a little bit more playful than we would think people making monuments in stone would be. And it makes me wonder how much of the difference in the shapes of the runes versus the shapes in some source alphabet, be that again Greek, Roman, or Greek derived through some middleman, how much the differences in those shapes might just be someone playing with them at some point, right? You know, this four-pocketed B never caught on, but what's to say that something like the difference between an H with one diagonal line and an H with two diagonal lines might not just be the result of someone playing around, just like we play around with fonts that look different ways to us. So I think that's an interesting question to ask, and I also wonder if maybe there was a period where the runes looked more like some original source alphabet, went through this big playful period that we're seeing some corner of, a beginning, a middle, or end in these inscriptions, and then got assimilated back toward a Roman model, where someone encountering the Roman alphabet brings back a notion of you know, B looks like this, H looks like this, and the letters kind of assimilate back towards something that looks more Roman. So that whatever the original source alphabet, it's also gone through a period where it's been kind of reshaped based on Roman letter shapes. I think that's a very plausible story too, and of course it gets a little bit complicated, but you would expect the history of an alphabet to be a little bit complicated. The history of ours is pretty complicated. So I will be looking forward to a lot more information about this. For those of you on my Patreon, I am working on getting Christoph Vassus at the University of Bergen to come on and give us an interview where hopefully we can get some of our questions answered and get a few more details. And of course, as more details emerge, whether in the Norwegian language or English language press, I will try to mediate them faithfully to you here on my channel and through other social media. Well, thank you, Patreon, for your support, and everyone out there from beautiful Colorado on this snowy, cloudy day. I'm wishing you all the best.